as a football lover, I mean, I'm really fascinated about this matchup because USC has been soft under Lincoln Riley, point blank, period, end of sentence. And if there's a team that can expose a soft opponent, it's Iowa. And we saw that in the Oregon game, that Iowa was able to go toe-to-toe, 15-round, bare-knuckle, drag-out fight, against a team that knows how to play physical football. Dan Lanning and Oregon are not soft. And Iowa was able to stand in the ring, go the distance. Can USC hang? Can USC take punches from a very rugged, physical Iowa team? I mean, I love the challenge. I love the contrast. I love the setup. The fact that it's at home, where USC generally does play well, means, there are no excuses for USC. But I can easily see Iowa punching USC in the gut and taking hold of this game on Saturday.
Before Corey takes off on this, when the 4 teams were announced from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, I was just dreaming of all these kind of matchups. Okay, they're going to get to play them and them. There was no contrast that I could have imagined. And now we're going to see it back-to-back weeks of thinking Iowa, especially Iowa circa like 2021, 22. They've progressed a little bit on one side of the football since then, but still just the Iowa way versus Oregon and versus USC. Fascinating. That's what I signed up for with the merging of these conferences.
Yep, it is the ultimate contrast in styles. Can USC make this a perimeter game, a down the field game, and can Iowa play the game in a phone booth and inside the hashes, inside the tackle box? I mean, it's really pretty simple, and you love that kind of contrast if you're a sports fan, whether it's Lakers Celtics, Navratilova Everett, Lincoln Riley, Kirk Ferentz, ultimate
Frazier Ali.
Contrast in styles.
Yeah.
What was that, Mark?
Ali Frazier.
There you go. Absolutely. Although, given that, USC and Iowa are cut below Ohio State and Indiana, it feels more like middleweight. Maybe this is Hagler Hearns.
There you go. Hagler Sugar Ray.
There you go. Yeah.
Am I supposed to talk now, Mark?
I believe so. That's why we've
if
got
you
you
want
here.
to.
Can we just display our comment here from Ed? We have to display the comment, Mark. Can we give some?
When I see a comment like that, Corey, I don't know if we want to ignore the comment or highlight the comment. So I'm playing off of you. So
I want to highlight the comment.
Okay.
I want you to read it out loud, Mark, in exactly the tone that Ed meant it toward me. I love it. I just love this stuff.
Here comes Ed. We appreciate you, Ed. Kind of. I have forgotten more about college football than you'll ever know. You shouldn't have lost to State, and now you're whining like a little baby.
Oh, Ed. I'll tell you what. Enjoy your pizza rolls in your mom's basement. Enjoy the show. We're all good, man. So I will say this, Matt. This absolutely is a contrast in styles. I think the big question is what Iowa team shows up. I mean, Kirk has been an all-star at enabling teams that, from an outside perspective, may seem like they're not playing for much to show up. And, it's not always being spoiler, but it's just staying together and being true to who they are and believing, playing for pride, playing for each other. So I would definitely side on that side of things. I would guess that Iowa will be ready to go. They don't typically play real well on the West Coast. That's well documented. People have been talking about that all week. They lost at UCLA last year in a really un-Iowa performance. I certainly USC, the biggest thing coming into the year, and Mark, you talked about USC joining the conference. The biggest thing I wondered about when that happened was, USC stretches the field. They're going to really test Iowa's corners. But Iowa has those corners have been tested this year, and they've passed the test in general. Iowa got a bit of a break. DeCorian Moore didn't play this past week for Oregon, and besides a shot down the sideline that went right by the hand of TJ Hall, that gave Oregon field goal range. Like TJ Hall played that really well, and he and Deshaun Lee have been phenomenal. Deshaun Lee recorded an interception down in the red zone this past weekend. But so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen Saturday. It will be fascinating. I think, this had potential to be even bigger than Iowa Oregon this past weekend, Matt, as you know. I mean, these two teams aren't playing for the same thing anymore. We're talking about Iowa being a spoiler, Mark, is not what Iowa fans wanted. But yeah, I think Lincoln Riley probably fits in a similar, I've talked about guys that probably, I don't know how Kirk feels about him specifically, but I'm always fascinated by the matchups of contrasting coaching styles. And it appears to me that Lincoln Riley and Kirk couldn't be more different. I don't like Dan Lanning either. I don't think Kirk probably loves Dan Lanning. I'm not speaking for him, but just the way Dan Lanning goes about his business. And by the way, can we just address something? Did you guys see, Mark, you probably saw it, Matt, you probably didn't. Did you guys see after the game on Saturday in Kinnick that onslaught of Oregon players that ran over in front of one of the Iowa fan sections to gloat and to taunt? I just said that, and I'm not trying to sound like it is what it is. Like you said, Mark, I try to take a very measured approach to all this. But what a bad, disgraceful look for your program, and how shame on Dan Lanning for not publicly apologizing. That's just not how you carry yourself. But it's a reflection of who he is. He's a cocky, prideful. What's the word? You got a descriptive word there for me, Matt? You've dealt with Dan Lanning more than I have.
Well, I haven't attended pressers from him, but he puffs out his chest and he's not afraid to do it. I would say, I would add to what you say, because I did see that. If you do that when, let's offer a historical comparison that Mark will readily grasp. When Miami just absolutely ragdolled Texas in that Cotton Bowl, okay, they acted like hooligans. It was not mannerly. They acted in a disgraceful way, but they won that game 46-3? Okay. If you want to be the villain when you do that, all right. Oregon won 18-16, barely inched across the line, and you're doing that? At least if you're going to wear the black hat, do it when you do what Miami did to Texas in that Cotton Bowl or something similar. Yeah, that's weak sauce, Oregon.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't rub you the right way. And I know Iowa fans. There were fans that threw beers at them and all that. But I'm that's not right either. But it's just so classless for a program. There's 70,000 fans in that stadium. Those players are representative of Oregon athletics and the University of Oregon. So it just should never happen. And now Brody's in the chat saying classless, so they do it every game. And by the way, the comment here, I don't know who this is. Daddies, man. Keith Duncan did it to Nebraska. Keith Duncan is one player, and he blew a kiss to Nebraska fans. One player. That's a simple, Keith, we don't do that. All right, I know you're in. This was a group. This was a large group of Oregon players. This is a systematic cultural thing, obviously. Don't compare one peach to a bushel of apples. It's not the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. Now he's saying it's not the same thing at all. Okay. Well, I mean, it's fine you feel that way, but you're wrong. So anyways, yeah, and I'm going to probably be accused. Mark, it's always interesting when these shows post. I'm always accused of being certain things. Certain people that never show up in the live chat love to throw crap at me afterwards. So I'll probably be accused of being a baby and whining about this. I'm simply saying it was not a classy thing.
I agree.
And it only reinforced what I already thought about Dan Lanning, not as a person, but how he carries himself as a coach. But Lincoln Riley is a little different. I don't have, he's a name that to me, Matt, carries a little bit more aura, but more than I do. I don't necessarily detect the level of cockiness that Dan Lanning, presents. So But man, it's going to be interesting. Contrast of styles, and this will be like Iowa hasn't given up a ton of points to anybody. I mean, Rutgers was the only team, and that was on the road. Rutgers went off on Iowa in that first half because of Calais McManus and those receivers. But ever since that first half, they've shored everything up. They have had literally no issues with anybody through the air. Not Indiana, not Oregon. Oregon ran for a bunch of yards, similar to what Penn State did in 2017 against Iowa. That's the other thing we didn't talk about, Mark. That game on Saturday felt a lot like 2017 Iowa, Penn State, and Kinnick. Saquon Barkley runs all over that Iowa defense, and yet Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler come back from the halftime break, and they're like, well, here we are sitting a 2-point game at halftime. This is how Iowa does it. They bend, and they were set up to win. Again, very similar conversation to what we had in 2017 and Indiana earlier this year. So anyways, yeah, sorry if I'm kind of going all over the place, Matt.
Well, when USC,
go ahead, Mark.
You can take off on this, Matt, unless you want to go a different direction. But since we're talking about the running game, when USC has been at its best, even though they're known for throwing the ball around, it's been with this third string freshman running back with the King getting it done there. He's been phenomenal, and they keep handing it to him, and he's been a workhorse as a walk-on freshman. And so that matchup against the Iowa defense, considering that Iowa does have an exceptional defense, but they did get run on against Oregon. So I believe it's going to start there.
Yeah, I think it needs to, because and just I'll get to the running game in a moment, but Jaden Maiava played a very clean September. But as the season's gone along, you can pretty much count on Maiava throwing at least one pick. Like he threw that pick against Northwestern, had to make the saving tackle near the goal line. What seemed like a dramatic evolution for Jaden Maiava early in the season, as the year has gone along, it's been pretty clear that Maiava was so good in those first 4 games because of the quality of competition. Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, Michigan State, I know Missouri State's actually had a decent season, but still, it's Conference USA at its own level. So, like, that was a cupcake, soft, mushy first 4 games. And as the caliber of competition has increased, Notre Dame and then Nebraska definitely made Maiava look pedestrian. Maiava's production, his overall quality, consistency have leveled off. And so, going up against Iowa's defense, like, I don't think Maiava can just sling it down the field and have success. He's going to need the running game to take some pressure off. So it's notable, while the Southern California hockey culture suffers, USC truly does have a Los Angeles King who can really get it done with Mr. Miller. So that's going to need to be integrated into the USC offense. It can't just be Maiava dropping back and throwing. It's going to need to be an integrated approach. And so it's going to be interesting to see what angle, what line of attack Lincoln Riley uses. Like, is he going to start maybe with the screen game? Maybe give Maiava some easy throws, try and, Lincoln Riley likes to manipulate the field horizontally, get you moving outside, and then he hits you up the A gap later. He makes you think about defending the full width of the field, and then he goes up the middle. It's going to be interesting to see. Does he just go with the upward thrust with Miller, or does he start with some light probing into the flats outside the numbers? Does he take a deep shot or two? And how he sequences all of that. But King Miller is going to need to figure into that calculus to a significant extent at some point.
I agree with that. I think that I think you're right about it's got to be balanced. Iowa's proven, I believe they've proven, Oregon's a great example of that it's going to be hard to beat this Iowa defense consistently if you're one-dimensional. And, you look last year at UCLA, they ran the ball unbelievably well, which is that is one of the games that's like, they had no rushing attack last year, and somehow they're running up and down the field against Iowa. So that will always be a game that will make no sense to me. So, but they also had success through the air. Last year, Aiden Childs, same thing. Tons of success. I think he had two 100-yard receivers in that game. Oregon ran all over Iowa. It was still came down to one kick. Indiana, Iowa actually held Indiana's numbers down more than you would expect. But I just brought up Penn State 2017. So they're going to, I do believe they are going to have to. I mean, Oregon managed to find a way to win without Dante Moore doing much, but he did have to make some big throws late in that game with, being down to get him in field goal range. So at a minimum, even if USC is able to run the ball up and down the field, which maybe they will, because Oregon did, and that was in Kinnick, and Iowa struggled last year on the West Coast to stop a rushing attack that had really no history. Even if they're going to do that, Maiyava is going to have to make some big throws, I think. And yeah, I mean, if I know USC had the widely acclaimed special teams trickeration last week, which, by the way, my understanding of that, Matt, you correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of that is that change was made to the roster prior to the game starting, or else it would not have been legal, correct?
Well, the change was made late. In terms of the minutia, like in terms of the official roster as it's submitted, this is something I haven't been able to nail down. If a player is listed at a certain position, does that basically define whether it's a penalty or not? Because Sam Heward is listed as a quarterback, and to me, now I could be wrong here, but to me, USC exploited a loophole in the rulebook. And Mark's known me long enough that he knows that I think the college football rulebook is poorly written. There are all sorts of loopholes, all sorts of inconsistencies. And one inconsistency, just while we're on this, I'm just going to very quickly. Like the Iowa punter batted the ball at the 1 yard line, but it's not illegal batting if it's outside the end zone or if the batting is backward. But hypothetically, if you illegally kick the ball at the 1 yard line, it is a penalty. So that's just like one inconsistency with the rule book. But let me go back to now the fake punt. So the rule is you can't have players with the same jersey numbers playing the same position. But here's the thing. Does the rule book specifically state that, if you line up 12 yards behind the line of scrimmage, you are in fact a punter? To me, USC can say, well, he's not necessarily a punter. He actually has to punt the ball.
Well, wait a minute. Time out a second. The roster labels what position they play, but I could line up my quarterback as a receiver. That doesn't make him a wide receiver. He's just lined up as a receiver.
That's right. So these are loopholes, as far as I can tell. So just they're like, you are not a punter just because you take a snap 12 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So USC can say, oh no, we didn't have two punters wearing the same number. Sam Heward never punted the ball. Now, if you have two guys who both punt the ball once in the same game, then ipso facto you have two punters. But if one guy never punts the ball, was he ever a punter? Now, spirit of the law, Lincoln Riley was, of course, trying to deceive Northwestern. I'm not hiding from that. I'm not going to debate that because it's true. But USC exploited a loophole. And so the real issue we should be talking about here is the rule book needs to be written so much better and more tightly than it actually is. There are so many inconsistencies when you dig through plays and you see things on television, and college football has not buttoned these things up over the years, and that's why you get what you had on Friday.
Remind me, Matt, tell me what the exact rule is. What is actually not allowed?
What is exactly not allowed is you cannot have players playing the same position wearing the same jersey number. That much I know for certain.
Playing the same position or listed at the same position?
Playing the same position. See, I'm not sure about the whole listing part. But
I mean, yeah, I don't know how do you regulate who's playing at what position? I can bring a tight end and he's blocking, and I can say he's an offensive lineman, but he's actually a tight end. I guess because he checks in as eligible. I mean, that's such a weird thing. And you brought up the situation with Iowa. By the way, guys, one thing we haven't talked about, Mark, Iowa lost by 2. They had butchered snaps twice, one of which resulted in a safety, difference in the game. They had another 2-point conversion fail, difference in the game. And then they had the field goal, of course. But yeah, so that was so interesting. So I don't even know that Reese Dakin could possibly have known that what he did was the exact right thing to do. But with that ball, bouncing toward the goal line, instead of kicking it, he bats it into the end zone.
Smart play, as it turned out.
And then kicks it into the end zone. And that's why I was trying to figure out after the game. I'm like, I asked Matt Kroll, I'm like, did he get penalized? I mean, they announced the penalty, but did he get it enforced? He said, well, I thought I got enforced from the kickoff. I never went back and checked. But even if that was enforced on the kickoff, who cares? Do that every time. Kick that ball, kick it into the 8th row every time.
There were questions on the
broadcast. The only time you would want a touchdown instead of a safety is if you're down by 1 or tied in the final minutes, because then you're giving up the lead and the ball. But that's the only exception. That's the only exception.
Okay, so real quick, just to confirm, because you seem to know the rule better than I do, it's illegal to bat the ball in the end zone. Yes or no?
Yes, safety.
Okay,
and by rule.
And it's illegal to bat the ball forward at any point on the field.
Yes, but you can bat the ball backward, like I sorted through this on Saturday.
Backwards into the end zone, and then illegally kicked it into the back of the end zone.
So like that is like PhD knowing the rule book backwards and forwards. Like he knew exactly what to do to maximize avoiding the touchdown.
I can't imagine.
That is a football scholar right there.
He's from Australia. There's no way he knew what he was doing on that.
Maybe he didn't, but it sure came off like he did.
It was weird, man. And when I saw him bat the ball, because I didn't know the rule. I mean, I saw him bat the ball. I thought, jump on the ball. And then I see him kick it. I'm like, why didn't he jump on it? But it's wet out. You don't want the ball squirting out as you try to jump on it. And then when they announced it, and it's like it's 2 points. I'm like, man, it was a brilliant play.
Yeah, but it did reveal the inconsistency of the rule book. Like, you can muff a punt on the 5-yard line. It rolls into the end zone. You cover it up. It's a touchback, not a safety. Like, in what world does that make sense? Like, they still haven't changed that rule. Like, that happened in a Clemson-Louisville game like a decade ago. They still haven't fixed that. There's just all sorts of BS with the rule book.
I think we're going down a rabbit hole here, but I've always thought the rule, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's sort of a newer rule where you can catch, is it in the NFL or college as well? You can catch the ball with 1 foot out of bounds. If it's on a kickoff, you can catch it inbounds, but if you got a foot out of bounds, it counts as out of bounds. Spot the ball at the 40. Is that NFL or college?
I have seen that, and I don't remember which level of play I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure which way.
Well, how about, real quick, I'll just throw in a random comment because we're talking about special teams and stupidity. And how about 2014, Mark, Insight Bowl, Iowa, Tennessee? Is it Jonathan Parker is fielding a kick return? He catches the ball. His momentum is carrying himself toward the sideline. He catches the ball like at the 10 or the 15-yard line. And because of his momentum, he catches it, starts falling out of bounds, panics, and throws the ball back in the field of play. You remember that, Mark?
Yeah.
And hey, real quick, long story short,
I do.
He was part of that class action lawsuit, discrimination lawsuit. Jonathan Parker was part of that lawsuit after he left Iowa, as part of the whole 2020 scandal. So just a crazy side note.
You thought he
I
was playing basketball.
I just want to button down one thing because it's getting some comments in the chat that I can see. Iowa fans are saying, and I get this, like this is a reasonable comment, so I'm not hating on it. I'm not dunking on it. Someone's saying, he lined up as the punter. I'm not aware in the rule book that a punter is very specifically defined as, well, that it means you're lined up more than 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, as far as I'm aware, I'm not sure that the punter is defined so specifically that.
Exactly. This particular person, I believe, Jack, and I'm sure he knows football to a certain extent, but people get confused what it states in the rule book versus what we're accustomed to watching in regards to formation.
Yeah,
That's
was empirically, we all know he was lining up as the punter. So, Jack, I'm not disputing you. I'm saying, does the rule book pin that down with specificity so that the refs can throw a flag? Like Lincoln Riley was being deceptive. I'm not hiding from that. Sam Heward was lining up as the punter. I'm not denying that either. But from a rule book standpoint, is the punter defined with specificity such that the refs can say that's a flag? And to me, the only safe way, the safe and certain way to say you're a punter is if you actually punt. That we can establish with certainty. We can't establish the same level of certainty just because you're lining up where the punter normally positions himself.
There's nothing in the playbook or nothing in the rule book that says that the quarterback cannot line up 10 or 12 yards behind the line of scrimmage to take a shotgun in the spread formation.
Like in the 1997 Sugar Bowl, Steve Spurrier, who hated the shotgun, he busted it out for Florida State in that national championship game. And as far as I know, those shotgun snaps at Florida were like 2 yards longer than I think a conventional normal snap. Like Spurrier wanted to make sure Danny Werfel was well behind the line of scrimmage so that Raynard Wilson and Peter Boulware couldn't get at him the way they did a month earlier in Tallahassee. So I bring up that little seemingly meaningless detail to reinforce the point. If you're taking a snap 5 yards behind the line, 7, 10, 12, the rule book does not define punter versus quarterback based on those yardages. So the rule book needs to be buttoned up here, and USC exploited a loophole.
It's reminding me of taking football 101 as a freshman at Kent State University, and one of the Kent State University assistant coaches letting us know on day one, forget what you have been watching on television, because, for example, the rule book, wide receivers and eligible players versus linemen are not determined by just these guys are little and fast and have numbers in the 80s, and these guys are big and have numbers in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. There is supposed to be 6 men on the line of scrimmage. Therefore, you are not eligible to catch a pass if you are on the line of scrimmage unless you are on the ends of the line of scrimmage. That's why it's a big deal, and we see it all the time. If a receiver doesn't get his positioning right and he doesn't line up a yard back, he is technically a back. Even though he's split all the way out near the sideline, he is technically a back because he's in the backfield as a yard back in the formation.
Denard Robinson would like a word if we're talking about jersey numbers. But, the other thing I was going to bring up is...
So would Bear Bachmeier. Yes.
Oh, yeah. The other thing I was going to bring up is, USC not having jersey names, their last names on jerseys. That goes into this as well. I mean, that's just a little thing that makes them different than a team like Iowa. But if Iowa did that, you know what I'm saying? So that's something that's not regulated. Nobody regulates whether you got to have a name on the back of the jersey. And I think that should be, if you want an easy way to try to kind of solve what just happened, start enforcing jersey names.
Easy. See, right? See, you could be commissioner of college football. Like, you get it. Let's just, there are loopholes, there are flaws, there are these gaps. Let's fix them instead of just allowing them to persist. Corey, you absolutely nailed it.
And some of it on TV, or you're watching from the press box, you notice this a little bit easier than if you were on the field of play. But recently, KJ Parker, who wears, I think, number 1 for Iowa at receiver, he's been working on special teams, but he comes in with a number 32 jersey, but it doesn't have a name on the back. So it stands out like a sore thumb. But again, when USC does that, it doesn't stand out at all. Even when those Fox commentators made the comment, they did, even after the play happened, they're like, wow, that punter's got a perfect spiral. Like, he sure does. That's interesting.
And of course, Jason Benetti should recognize a good pitcher when he sees one.
That's Yeah,
He
Facebook
also
guy, that's right.
he made a big joke out of it, as you well know, Matt, because that was the nephew of his former running mate in the booth, Brock Heward.
Yes, Brock Heward, absolutely. Yep.
They even came back
I'm
from
gonna get in
break and
trouble
had
here.
RG3 break down his throwing motion, thinking that the punter threw the ball that well. And he's like, yeah, look at it, how he brought his hip through. And
Yeah, Brock busted his chops over the weekend.
so as we stay with Iowa and USC and wrap this up in the next couple minutes, what makes this game intriguing from an Iowa perspective? Because that is the big issue. Because if this is prior to a 12-team college football playoff and the diminishing value of bowl games, then certainly Iowa's played a number of 9-3, 8-4 type seasons and moved on to bowl games. And it seems as though the fan base has been fairly satisfied with that. But there's just such a hyper focus on this 12-team playoff that as soon as a team gets that third loss, it's like the fan base checks out, or a portion.
I will say this, though, that the recent, or just the Kirk Ferentz record in November, I think speaks against everything that I've been saying about kind of feeling kind of like it's all lost, because their record is phenomenal in November.
But was there a Western Division championship on the line?
True. That's true. Kirk, we've talked about this. Kirk doesn't. His emphasis has never been on championships and banners with how he motivates his team. So I would guess that they're going to come out and look really good Saturday, and they're going to look the same as they have. That's my guess, because I do have a lot of confidence in Kirk to kind of rally the troops. But even if this game were in play, like if the playoff were still in play, I haven't come out with my official pick, but I would have had a hard time seeing Iowa winning this game. Probably certainly less likely than I had for them to beat Indiana or Oregon or Iowa State. If I was able to kind of foresee the days leading up to each game prior to the season starting, this would have been my least confident game on the schedule. Even right up, Penn State was top 5 preseason, top 3 preseason. I would have still had more confidence. That's the Kinnick effect, but we just don't know what this team is going to do away from home against a team with a pulse, because we just haven't seen them besides Iowa State, and they've really fallen off a cliff. They've gone on the road. Iowa's gone on the road and whooped Wisconsin. They really, that first half against Rutgers was ugly, and Rutgers has turned out to be not a very good football team. They've been at home forever, it seems, 3 straight games now. So, and they get to
blasted
finish off.
Minnesota on the road, right? Was that on the road?
No, that was in Kinnick.
Oh,
that was in Kinnick as well. Yeah. So we just don't know what they're going to do away from home. There's so many factors at play here. But you tell me, Mark, you're the national guy. What is Iowa playing for besides pride and bowl positioning? What are they playing for?
Iowa, considering how they recruit and that they stay within their footprint to a large extent, or not necessarily within a geographic footprint, but they stay with their formula. I don't think great seasons or less than expected seasons really mess with their formula. I think this is a better question for like a Miami. I think that this really plays, Miami going from top 5 serious playoff contender to, they may not make it, and then their season comes unraveled and they're playing for nothing, really plays with their future more so than a Iowa, which has been the model of consistency.
Especially when you're a program like Iowa that from the top down doesn't place a big emphasis on national postseason qualification success anyways. You know what I'm saying? So, and they, by the way, if they can go out there and beat USC, it's a 2:30 game. I don't even know, Matt. Is it CBS or Big Ten?
It's Big Ten Network. And that's not like a executives preferring one game over the other, because, CBS's game is Penn State, Michigan State. It's because they got caught. There's a contractual obligation that at least one USC home game needs to be BTN. So they have to take it. That's why.
Yes.
We're waiting for that Penn State-Michigan State game on CBS. Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Danielson and Nessler gets Penn State, Michigan State, while the Big Ten crew gets, and then this will be the highest rated game on the Big Ten Network the entire year. I guarantee that. So, Matt, before we wrap this thing up, because Corey and I are moving on, we appreciate you being here, of course. Let people know about Trojans Wire. But where do you think USC stacks up now that you do have 9 games under your belt to evaluate this football team against the rest of the Big Ten, assuming that you've got the same hierarchy in your head as most do, Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon on down the line? Is USC the best of the rest?
We're about to find out. USC needs to prove something. USC hasn't really achieved anything to this point. You beat a not very good Michigan team at home. Michigan barely beat Purdue at home. Michigan's nothing special. And USC lost to an Illinois team, which, has not turned out to be all that good. That's the loss that's going to haunt USC fans throughout the offseason if the Trojans don't make the playoff. That was just a really subpar performance against a not great opponent. And then, Notre Dame's good, but Notre Dame's not great. And CJ Carr did not play well, and USC gives up over 300 rushing yards to Notre Dame. So, this USC team hasn't done anything of note. And these 3 games, starting with Iowa, we're going to see if this season gets remembered for anything good or if it's just more mediocrity for Lincoln Riley. Corey, you tell me, this is something I'd be interested in. You just played Oregon. Is USC ready to beat Oregon? I mean, I think that, Oregon didn't play its best game, to be sure, but, Oregon and Iowa were trading punches. Those were 2 physical football teams, and I don't see USC as physical on the same level as either Oregon or Iowa. What's your take?
Well, if I'll tell you this, if USC beats Iowa in a low-scoring affair, kind of like Oregon beat Iowa this past weekend, then I'd be very concerned if I was USC for that Oregon matchup, because there is a Kinnick effect. I keep saying that, but as much as I have belief that Iowa could compete with some of these teams in a 12-team playoff, these games that we're evaluating, Iowa, Indiana, Iowa, Oregon, those were in Kinnick. And so I don't know if Iowa can force a team like USC to play their style. They forced Oregon to play their style at home. Is that USC Oregon game, is that in Eugene?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have zero belief the Trojans are going to win that game.
We're going to find a lot. I think if they come out and score a lot of points, and even if Iowa scores some points, if they can score points in that Iowa defense, even at home, I would feel relatively good. But yeah, going to Eugene is going to be difficult regardless.
Matt, what's going on at Trojans Wire?
Well, we're talking a little bit about Iowa, but the big news really is UCLA potentially leaving the Rose Bowl. So that has Angelinos talking, about, hey, should USC play games at the Rose Bowl, not be a permanent year-long tenant, still play most of your games at the Coliseum, but certainly play one game at the Rose Bowl to just kind of take ownership of that. That is a very hot topic in Los Angeles college football right now.
I know nothing about the financial stipulations. I'm sure that's driving all of it, of course, to go to SoFi Stadium. And I understand that the Rose Bowl, from the standpoint of up-to-date amenities and all those things, is not the type of stadium that you want. But when people think UCLA football, that program has lost all cachet, everything except one thing. They play at the Rose Bowl. They play at arguably the grandest of all stadiums in college football. And to take that away, they are whoever, fill in the blank, nothing, just generic program that plays at SoFi Stadium. Yeah,
I just want to say, Corey and all the people watching here on the Iowa show at the Voice of College Football, Trojans Wire readers, USC fans are much more interested in the UCLA Rose Bowl drama than they are about Trojan football right now. And this is with USC being 7-2. No, but our most read stories are about the UCLA soap opera. And that just reflects. And that reflects the lack of belief that Lincoln Riley's going to get this team over the line. And frankly, I can't really even blame people for thinking that way.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, maybe is this close? I can tell you most viewership right now on my stuff is Iowa women's basketball. So
You're hurting me.
Just serious. Hey, Matt knows all about women's basketball. Juju Watkins. You know who that is, Mark? Do you know who Juju is?
I know only because of Matt.
Oh.
and yeah, Corey, so I'm at the editor at Trojans Wire, okay?
Yeah.
Hawkeyes Wire is the highest performing College Wire site out of 28 because of Caitlin Clark and Iowa women's basketball.
Yeah, I believe that. Oh yeah.
Yep.
And that Hawkeyes Wire does a lot. I mean, I've talked to the guys at Hawkeyes Wire once or twice, but most of what they do or what you guys do is you're very heavy on social media, right? Facebook and I know everybody has to be on social media, but all I know is the Caitlin Clark phenomenon creates such all I get on my business page on my thing is Caitlin Clark stuff, and I don't want it. It's just nonstop, fake accounts, just constant Iowa women's basketball stuff. It's insane.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.